What is extraordinary, I'll use the word extraordinary about this spectacle, is you have a NATO member, Turkey, essentially using its status as a prominent member of the Western alliance in order to have the will done of an ultra-nationalist, white right-wing leader, Islamic conservative leader who's facing elections, basically using an issue that is dear to his heart, the supposed fight against existential threat posed by Kurdish militants, which he seems as terrorist groups, extremist groups, in order to block the bid of Sweden, especially to join NATO, which is a completely separate issue, if you will. Turkey has played the role of spoiler time and again in NATO, and you can't really do anything about it because it's so strategically located. It has the second largest army in the organization. It's been there forever, since 3 years after the founding of NATO in 1949. And everyone basically needs Turkey on board. No one in the NATO alliance, especially at this time when it desperately needs Turkey. The NATO members need Turkey and its strategic role, its balancing act, being able to speak to all members and being one of the key mediators along with the UN in getting grain blockaded in Russian ports to be able to transit freely to the developing world where that food is needed. This role, this reliance on Turkey to basically step up to the plate in volatile times makes everyone basically have to grovel to Turkey. And the spectacle was extraordinary in the sense that, yeah, you're absolutely right. We did see the president, give the green light to submitting Finland's accession bid to the Turkish parliament, presumably, yes, en route to ultimately having the parliament ratify that bid. But at what price? I mean, you essentially saw the Finnish president almost groveling to Erdogan there. And, I do use the word groveling because, he was, in the way he expressed himself, you're one of the few leaders that's able to talk to everyone all around the world.
Kissing the ring.
Exactly, kissing the ring. And so it is extraordinary because in a certain sense, Finland and Turkey couldn't have less to do with each other if you were trying to come up with two less similar countries. They are both, yes, NATO members. And in this case right now, Finland desperately needs Turkey on board to ratify its bid, so it will have to do whatever Turkey is demanding. So in a sense, it was a remarkable spectacle, extraordinary, a little humiliating, a groveling sort of spectacle. And like you said, it leaves Sweden really very much on the sidelines right now. Sweden is the flip side of what happens when you don't do Erdogan's bidding or where you don't jump like a lapdog to do everything Erdogan wants.
Right. That's my next question.
Yeah.
What is Sweden thinking right now watching this press conference? I mean, is the leader booking a flight to Ankara right now?
Yeah, look, Sweden's between literally a rock and a hard place right now because obviously, the original plan was for Sweden and Finland to sort of march in lockstep to breaking historic, decades-long military non-alignment last year after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, made dramatic headlines, splashed across the front pages of the world. And back then, everyone thought, oh, wow, Sweden and Finland are going to join NATO together, bringing the Western alliance to 32 members. And instead, we now have this sort of split-screen situation, whereas we saw today, Finland gets the nod because Finland has done what Erdogan wants of Finland, has done Erdogan's bidding. Sweden hasn't. Sweden's prime minister. And Erdogan, sort of was in a tight position himself. He tried to sort of give the nod to Sweden's prime minister, saying, he's been very straightforward and forthcoming. But at the end of the day, what Erdogan was saying, but he hasn't done what we want. He said, and I quote him, he says, we can't say yes to a country that does nothing to combat terrorism. And once again, that goes to the crux of the matter here. The crux of the matter being that Erdogan considers the PKK, these Kurdish militant groups, to be terrorist organizations that pose an existential threat to Turkey. These are groups that are present, yes, in Sweden. Sweden's a democratic country. Sweden's a country that allows protests. It allows different ranges of voices to speak up. Turkey is demanding the extradition of a lot of these Kurdish militants and separatists. We heard Erdogan say today that he had even submitted a list to Sweden of 100 or so or of names that he would like, of people that he wants extradited to Turkey to be tried in Turkey on terrorism-related charges. You can imagine, yes, Sweden is having some qualms about doing that. What happens once they're in Turkey being tried? Would these be fair trials? What sort of justice would they face? Would they even face, vaguely open and transparent courtrooms and trials? So yeah, Turkey does have reservations. Turkey, like I said, is between a rock and a hard place. What can Turkey do? Either it fully does Erdogan's bidding and it grovels and gives in, or they strike some behind-the-scenes deal with some sort of quid pro quo. Perhaps we won't even know what it's all about, allowing Sweden to ultimately get the green light. But for now, yeah, it's looking really tough. And Erdogan was very clear today, in no uncategorical terms. Did he say that he is ready to give the green light to Sweden until Sweden does what Turkey sees as absolutely necessary? Erdogan, ahead of what is expected to be extremely closely fought, closely contested election on May 14th in Turkey, is laying down the gauntlet and basically saying, if it comes down to, yes, my support in principle for these nations being able to join NATO, or my concerns about security and combating, quote, terrorism at home in Turkey, the latter gets precedent. Combating terrorism, our security, Turkey's security, that is what is going to get my most attention. And your bid to join NATO, that comes next. That's secondary.